The reason I actually started doing this type of fundraising service is because I had seen and been in organizations where they'd hired that junior fundraiser, and the board and executive director didn't really know fundraising, so they didn't really know how to supervise that person. And so they waste a lot of time. They do a lot of things. I mean, back in the day, my first fundraising job, I was that person. It was my first job. Now, I figured it out and I was successful. I was in that role for 4 years, but the churn or turnover in those positions can be like 6, 12 months. And nothing happens. You're not going to see results. And so this cycle happens where they invest. They get excited that they have this person. The person doesn't do well because they don't know what to do and there's no leadership helping them. And then they quit or are fired. And then the organization thinks that was such a waste of money. We are not going to hire another fundraiser right now. Like, they didn't do anything, literally money down the toilet. And then they wait 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And the opportunity cost of not actively building your fundraising program during that time is huge. And so that's what I saw happening. That job that I left that I was at for 4 years, I think it took them 10 years to fill it with someone who lasted more than a year. Yeah, it was, and that broke my heart because I built such an amazing program and then there was no consistency. So this model we started doing because of my personal experience and seeing these small organizations not progress in their fundraising because they just didn't have the right staffing and support.
Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. This is Tom Dauber with the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. I'm pleased to have on my show today, Cindy Wagman. Cindy, you are out there all over the internet as an expert in fractional fundraising. I'd never heard of it until I ran across you on the internet, and I'm so excited to have you on today to share a little bit about what you do with our audience.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, this is a fundraising podcast, but it's always nice to learn from my guests about their hobbies, how they keep busy when they're not focused on philanthropy, those sorts of things. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this the other day because I feel like I'm at an age and stage in my life where I don't have that many hobbies. It's kind of embarrassing. But honestly, I spend a lot of time doing soccer driving with my kids. I take them to the pitch, at least 3 times a week. In the summer season, it's almost every day. So I feel like that's my hobby right now. And it's not one I'm very proud of, but we do like hosting people. So my husband and I really do enjoy having people in our home for dinner or meals. I would say that's like our true hobby.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, so tell us about your fundraising career. How'd you get into this profession? Were you a young person and decided, I just want to be a fundraiser? What was your journey like?
Yeah, so I am one of those few people who was young and was like, oh, I want to do this. So I don't think you've met many people like that,
Not
but
too many.
I've always been involved in nonprofit work in high school and in university. I ran the Women's Empowerment Committee at my school, and we were fundraising for local organizations. And one summer between, I think, second and third year, I met 2 professional fundraisers. I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a profession. I mean, this was late 90s, early 2000s. I was like, oh, you can get paid? This is a career. So that sparked my fundraising journey. I actually wrote a thesis in my undergrad on feminist fundraising. And that's what I've been doing ever since until about 2 years ago when I sort of slowly transitioned my business away from actually doing the work to teaching other people how to run their business.
Well, that's fantastic. So I first ran across your material, like I mentioned before, when I was starting my own fundraising consultancy almost exactly 12 months ago. It was my first time I've ever heard of the term fractional fundraising. And I know it's a new concept for many of my listeners. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah. So I did not come up with this term, but fractional executives is a term that I had heard used outside of the nonprofit sector to describe, like as a business owner myself, to describe a type of support I could access where I could have someone who had a lot of experience, high level, like C suite type skill set, who I could bring into work in my organization or in my business, not at full time. And so it's a much more affordable way to access that. So they're still a consultant, they're not a part time staff person. They work with multiple clients, and it's a way to access someone who usually like sort of bridges a little bit of the strategic insight and oversight that you would get from traditional consultants, but a little bit more hands on and embedded within your company or organization, who's going to see some of the work actually happen. And I saw that, and I realized we were doing that in my business without calling it that. We used to call it done for you fundraising. And I had a team. There were 5 full-time staff when we were doing this. And we used to come into organizations and run their fundraising program, small organizations, run their fundraising program. And each of my team members would work on about 3 different clients. And so as I started, and what was happening is we were fully booked. So my business was fully booked. And I looked at scale, and it was these really big steps. So if I wanted to serve more clients who needed our help, I needed to add like 3 staff members, and we needed 5 clients at least to afford the 3 staff people. Like it was this really big step. And so I thought, well, I've built a business, a thriving business doing this. Maybe I can help other fundraisers build their own fractional fundraising business. And so that's what I do now. But the idea for people who haven't heard of it is basically you're getting an experienced fundraiser who bridges that, what I would say, like going from no fundraising staff to having a full-time in-house fundraising manager type position. You want someone who can come in, bring the strategy and the implementation, and just take the stress of fundraising off your plate, and do it over a longer period of time, not just like a project or a campaign, but actually see the day-to-day fundraising get done.
The thing I like about that model, Cindy, I don't know about Canada where you work, but in the United States, we've got like 1.6 million or so nonprofits. And I looked up, the average revenue for them is around 350,000. Now you can
And that's the
imagine.
average for all of them. If you looked at the average for organizations under 500,000,
Yeah.
it's a lot. I don't know the number, but I can tell you it's going to be a lot lower. I think
Oh, wow.
80% of charities, both in Canada and the US,
Yeah.
are like small. They have, I think, under 500,000 or under $1 million in revenue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is with those small shops, they can't afford the help. Many of them can't afford, like some of the clients that I work with, they'll post a fundraising position, paying $40,000, $60,000, and it'll just sit out there and no one will even apply.
No one will apply, or they'll get someone who's not good or not
Right.
experienced.
Right.
And the reason I actually started doing this type of fundraising service is because I had seen and been in organizations where they'd hired that junior fundraiser, and the board and executive director didn't really know fundraising, so they didn't really know how to supervise that person. And so they waste a lot of time. They do a lot of things. I mean, back in the day, my first fundraising job, I was that person. It was my first job. Now I figured it out. and I was successful. I was in that role for 4 years, but the churn or turnover in those positions can be like 6, 12 months, and nothing happens. You're not going to see results. And so this cycle happens where they invest, they get excited that they have this person. That person doesn't do well because they don't know what to do and there's no leadership helping them. And then they quit or are fired. And then the organization thinks that was such a waste of money. We are not going to hire another fundraiser right now. Like, they didn't do anything, literally money down the toilet. And then they wait 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And the opportunity cost of not actively building your fundraising program during that time is huge. And so that's what I saw happening. That job that I left that I was at for 4 years, I think it took them 10 years to fill it with someone who lasted more than a year. Yeah, it was, and that broke my heart because I built such an amazing program and then there was no consistency. So this model we started doing because of my personal experience and seeing these small organizations not progress in their fundraising because they just didn't have the right staffing and support.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Academy. Are you a nonprofit leader who's new to fundraising? Are you feeling crushed by your fundraising goals and not sure how to find success? My online class, crafted from my 25 years of experience and more than 5,000 donor meetings, Abundant Vision Academy will give you the confidence and understanding you need to start building relationships with donors and having gift discussions in just 110 minutes. You'll get 14 videos covering all the topics you need to find success in fundraising. You can take it at your own pace and can watch as many times as you'd like. This is one of the best deals in fundraising continuing education you can get today. To make sure you get off to a strong start in 2024, I'm offering a 50% discount to anyone signing up for my course this spring. That's a $375 value. Enter the coupon code SPRING2024 at checkout to claim your 50% discount. That's Spring 2024. Head on over to thomas-dauber-s-school.teachable.com and click on Abundant Vision Academy to get your discount today. The link is in the podcast description. Well, I like that you're addressing the fact that a lot of times those executive directors haven't had experience managing a fundraiser. Mm-hmm. And so bringing someone in that doesn't really need any management is such a win-win.
And oftentimes, not even that they don't have experience, but the thought of managing someone early in their career is prohibitive for some executive directors, because to them it's like, well, it's just more work I have on my already full plate. I don't want to manage someone junior. Honestly, it's faster, easier if I send the one mailing or do one campaign a year and I do it myself and it's done, right? So it's that hurdle of like the management of someone feels like it doesn't pay off as much as having that person in the organization.
Yeah, for sure. So you started this model and you've explained kind of why you went that direction. In terms of training consultants, which is one of the things you do now, how would you compare the fractional fundraising model of consulting to other types of consulting that are out there?
Yeah. So you can get really amazing consultants to do different kinds of work. So when I started consulting, I thought consultants just give you advice, right? And so that's very much like the expert consultant who's coming, they're giving you advice. Maybe they're doing a strategic fundraising plan or an organizational strategy, but they're coming in, they're engaging you a little bit and giving you something. And, I call it like bless and release, right? They give you the information and that's done. That can be really helpful, right? There's some really amazing expert minds in our sector that we want access to. Fantastic. There's the coaches, people who will come in and work with individuals within an organization to help them grow within their roles. Critical. I can't tell you how many people I've seen in this sector be promoted to a position without getting support to actually manage and lead a team. And so coaching, I think, has a really powerful way of supporting organizations. And then there's the sort of specialists who come in and they're going to run a campaign, or they're going to do your social media. They are really, really focused, plan giving or what have you. Fractional fundraisers come in and they do something quite unique, which is they're generalists. At least the fractional fundraisers that I train in our network have to be generalists, because the first thing they're going to do is figure out what the strategy is, and that could lead them into grants. It could lead them into major gifts. It could lead them into planned giving. It could lead them into direct appeal. And so the strategy piece is really critical, because every organization needs their own unique strategy. So they need to be generalists. We want people who can come in without that bias of like, I'm really good at this. Well, it doesn't matter what you're really good at. The organization has its own needs. And often with small organizations, they misdiagnose their needs. So they need that expertise in the strategy piece to start. I can't tell you how many organizations I've had come to me saying we need to do corporate fundraising. They usually say that because the board feels like companies will part with their money easier, and they don't know anyone personally who can give. And so that's the right strategy. That's not how you come up with a fundraising strategy. This is the FOMO strategy, I call it, which is, it's really based on this idea of frequency illusion, which is like our brain pays attention to things that it's sort of already thinking of. So you have a friend who had a big fundraising gala, raised like $1 million in one night for an organization. And so all of a sudden your board is like, well, everyone's doing fundraising galas. We need that. So small organizations are uniquely bad. I feel bad saying that, but uniquely bad at diagnosing their fundraising strategy. So that's the first thing a fractional fundraiser will do, is come in, diagnose it. And so then they will implement. They'll create a plan and they will implement that plan. And so they're generalists in the sense that they will do the grant writing. As I said before, they'll do all the different pieces of it. And they are responsible for moving it forward, which is a very different kind of consulting work, because it is bringing the strategy with that implementation. And as I said, a very generalist or diverse type of implementation that other consultants don't provide.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Some of my clients, when I first talk with them, they're thinking maybe I'll go solicit gifts for them, and I have to help them understand, no, I'm going to teach you how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I can see how that would have a different appeal.
Yeah. And it definitely is a unique gap that it's filling, right? Not every organization needs a fractional fundraiser. I would never say that, right? So I think that it is really well suited, as I said before, to organizations who are really bridging a growth gap, and helps them do that over a medium term, right? Also, these are not the way I teach fractional fundraising. You're not working on 6-month contracts. These are 12-month commitments at minimum. I just had a conversation with someone in our network who's wrapping up the second full year of working with one of her clients, and they're having an amazing year. Things are going really well. I'm quite confident they'll continue for a third year. So it's really helping stabilize and grow that fundraising program so that eventually you can bring someone in-house.
Cindy, thanks so much for being on with me today. I'm hopeful that in our listening audience right now, there is some fundraiser who is burnt out, looking for a new way to use their skills. I'm also hoping that there is an executive director somewhere who desperately needs fundraising support and didn't know about fractional fundraising, just like me. I am so looking forward to our next discussion to hear more about the ins and outs. As always, I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together toward major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.